Bright Duty. Every student matters.
Hi students, welcome to the session. In this session, we are going to talk about the wastewater treatment plant. Now, in the previous session, we talked about what are the different processes that are involved in the wastewater treatment. We conducted an activity with the help of which we saw that how different kinds of contaminants were removed from the wastewater. In that activity, we had made the wastewater by adding certain contaminants. But in the wastewater treatment plant, the contaminants or the wastewater is brought from various different regions, right? Now, the wastewater treatment plant has various processes which are used to remove different things. If you remember, when we were talking about sewage, we had talked about the different kinds of contaminants and we have classified them. If we talk about the broad classification, usually the contaminants can be classified broadly into biological, physical, and chemical contaminants, right? So there are three main kinds of contaminants that are there, that is biological, physical, and chemical. So when we look at the wastewater treatment plant, we see that there are physical, biological, and chemical treatments to remove these three types of contaminants. This particular image is an overview of how or what are the different processes that the wastewater or sewage undergoes for the cleaning. The very first contaminant that is cleaned are the physical contaminants. What are these physical contaminants? These are basically the rags that are there. It can be plastic, it can be plastic bottles. All of these are cleaned. And over here you can see this is the main process where the physical cleaning takes place. Then over here we see that aeration is taking place where, right? These two processes are where the biological cleaning takes place. Then after that, this over here, there is another process where the chemical cleaning takes place, that is the addition of chlorine and addition of or maybe passing UV rays through this clean water so that any germs that might be present can be killed, any kind of contaminant that is there can be removed, right? Also, we understand that there are two ways in which the water that is there is released. First, it is released to the river, right? That means this is some clean water, somewhat clean water, which is removed or passed on to the water bodies. Then there is clean water that is so clean that can be recirculated and can be used for cleaning, cooking, and drinking purposes. Right? So always remember, students, that there are three types of processes that takes place, that is physical, biological, and chemical processes. And also understand that these are the three processes which remove physical, biological, and chemical contaminants. So now let's move on and talk about the very first process and very first phase of cleaning that takes place. So the very first cleaning that takes place is through a bar screen. As you can see over here, the bar screen is somewhat like a mesh, right? So when you look at the previous picture over here, you can see that how does the bar screen actually works, right? So it looks like a mesh, and the large rubbish pieces which are there get stuck in the mesh when the water is flown through it. Right? So over here also in this particular slide, you can see how these physical things have got stuck in this, right? So it's a mesh-like structure in which large objects like rags, polythene bags and bottles, say if there are any metal cans or tin cans, if there are any plastic packets or bottles that are there, right? Plastic packets, napkins, there can be various things that might be present in this sewage, and this gets locked or they get blocked at this very step. So when the water is passed through the mesh, the large garbage, whatever large garbage is there, gets filtered out right over here, gets removed over here itself, right? Once the water is passed through the mesh, all of these things are removed right over here. Then the next step comes, right? So it is a very, very important step, student. Remember, all of these things are such which cannot get decomposed, right? So they need to be removed. This is a very important step again, because it saves any human effort that can be put into this particular first step, right? That's the reason why we also say that whenever we are throwing things, we should be very careful, because we do not want to increase the wastewater, right? This is something which we are going to study further. As of now, it is important for us to understand that the large garbage pieces, right, are removed in this first step. And how does it get removed? With the help of the bar screen, right? Then water again then goes to the grit and sand removal tank, right? So grit and sand removal, the water goes into the grit and sand removal tanks, right? Over here, the speed of incoming water is decreased. How it is decreased? With the help of these kind of pillars which are there. Now, remember, students, if you remember the overview of the wastewater plant that we saw, over there you might think as these tanks as very small, but because you can imagine the amount of water that is coming through, say even from a colony, right? If there is, suppose this is a huge town, and from this area only if the sewage is coming, so you can imagine there are, say, 100 houses. So how much water is coming into the wastewater? So that is why these tanks are huge, right? These whatever tanks we are going to talk now in further steps, please remember they are huge tanks and can hold a lot of water, right? Now, the water which is now coming in, first of all, it is free of the rubbish, right? So it is purely waste water that is there. It doesn't have any huge, rubbish like your all these rags or anything else. So the speed of the water with which it is coming is decreased with the help of these kind of structures. Now, when the speed is decreased, what happens is that sand, grit, and pebbles, right? These are the things which are quite heavy. They get settled down, right? So over here, settles down. So the water that contains all of these things settle down. Now you might wonder from where all these things are coming, because these things are not there in the houses. These things are not there in the in the industries. So usually all of this comes into the wastewater through the rainwater, which is running off the roads, which is running off the roofs, roofs. All of these things, that is the sand, grit, pebbles, the dirt that is there basically, is removed in this particular grit and sand removal tank. As the name suggests, this tank is used to remove sand and grit. Over here, the speed of water is decreased. Why it is decreased? Because we want to give the speed of water is decreased. Why it is decreased? Because we want to give time to these particles that are present inside the water to settle down. I'm pretty sure some of you must have gone and seen the rivers. So if you've gone to Haridwar or Rishikesh, right, all of these rivers, you will see they are fast flowing rivers, and usually especially during the rainy season, they bring along the dirt and all the soil particles with them. Because these rivers are fast flowing, you will see that all of this dirt, sand, and small pebbles are flowing along with it. When the speed settles, when the speed decreases, because they are heavy, they settle down, right? So in this way, this same concept is used in this grit and sand removal tank also, that the speed with which the water is coming in is reduced. Because of that, what happens is that it gives the time to all these contaminants to settle down, right? Once this happens, the water then goes into another tank which is sloped in the middle. Now I will show you this tank in that particular picture over here. If you look, this kind of tank is there. This is the grit and sand removal tank. As you can see, over here the grit and sand has settled down. Next is the first sedimentation tank. Over here the water goes into the next tank, which is again a big tank where the slope is in the middle, right? So you can see it is sloped in the middle. Why is it sloped? Because the solid like feces, right, and these solid materials, they can settle down. Again, these are sloped so that we can remove this all this feces and any solid material easily, right? So these are as you can see, these are what these tanks are sloped in the middle, and whatever whatever settles down in this particular tank, that is the water clarifier. So this tank is somewhat sloped in the middle, right? And once the feces, that is the solid waste, settles, right, once the solid waste settles, it is removed from the bottom of the tank. So this is one of the tanks which is also called as the water clarifier, right? So over here what is happening, that this is removed with the help of a scraper, right? So whatever feces material, solid material has settled down, this is the solid waste like feces. We know already that the toilet or the foul garbage or the foul sewage also comes into this. So over here what is happening, whatever has settled down is removed with the help of a scraper. Now this this particular solid waste that has been removed is called as the sludge, right? So this solid waste that is removed, solid waste that is removed is called as the sludge. Now if we again go back to the image that we saw, the overview that we saw over here, you can see that this part is called as the sludge, right? This is the solid waste. Now this sludge, as you can see, goes into a digester tank, right? So this is the digester tank where the sludge settles. And what happens is, because it has feces, so definitely it will have certain microbes. So in this digester tank, what is happening, decomposition is happening, right? So when the decomposition is taking place, you will see that the biogas is the gaseous fuel is released in this kind of gases which are released during the decomposition are used as biogas. So you can see that even in the sludge, when the decomposition is taking place, the byproduct, that is the gas, is also utilized as the biogas, right? And now some of the things are the solid waste which will settle down and are called as the sludge, and they are removed with the help of scraper. But some of the things, what will happen, they will float onto the surface of the water. These are removed by the help of a skimmer, right? So what happens is that it is skimmed up, this is skimmed from the surface of the water. Now to understand this, if suppose you have kept a glass of milk, or say or maybe a glass of milk outside for some time, a hot glass, and you will see that there is a formation of cream over it. What you do is you take a spoon and you remove that cream from the milk. That is known as skimming. So basically, skimmer removes this floating waste material from this water. Once this has happened, the water obtained is called as the clarified water, right? So because it gets cleared of all the solid waste, that it settles and it forms sludge, and anything which floats up onto the surface is removed with the help of the skimmer, right? Now, like I said, the sludge is then transferred into a separate tank where it is decomposed, and the gas that is released is used as biogas, and it acts as a fuel, right? Also, whatever is left, right, whatever part after the decomposition is left is used as manure. Once we've got the clarified water, right, once we obtained the clarified water from this tank, that is the water clarifier tank, next this water is passed on to the other tank, that is the aerator. Now in this image, students, before we move on, this is something this is how the sludge looks like. Over here you can see how it has come onto the top, right, and is removed easily. Again, sludge is not wasted, it is decomposed, right? The sludge is decomposed. It releases biogas, which is utilized as fuel. Also helps in electricity, right? So it is utilized as fuel and to produce electricity, right? Now, next tank that we are moving on to is aerator. In this, if you remember the process that we had done in the previous session, in that we had used a small aerator from the aquarium, and we passed bubbles of water of air through the water. Over here, what we are doing is, as you can see, if you look at this particular image, you can understand that a lot of air is passed from the aerator. It's a very powerful aerator that is present inside this tank, and a lot of water, a lot of air is pumped. The air is pumped into the clarified water. Now, once the air is pumped into the clarified water, what happens is that the aerobic bacteria grows, right? Now, once the growth of aerobic bacteria takes place, bacteria grows, right? So once the growth of aerobic bacteria takes place, what happens is that aerobic bacteria consumes any human waste that might be present, any food waste which might be present, right? It consumes food waste. It consumes, if any soap particle is present, then it also consumes any unwanted matter, right? Anything which is still remaining in that clarified water is removed with the help of the aerobic bacteria. So the growth of aerobic bacteria happens because of the pumping of the air. Now, when we had put the sludge into the digester tank, in that tank the anaerobic bacteria were working. But in this case, the aerobic bacteria is working, and this consumes all of these things, making the water further more clear, making it further more clean, right? So once this happens, after a lot of hours, remember, if when we were talking about aeration, we had kept the water overnight. So you can imagine how long the aerator contains this water, this clarified water. Once, after hours of this suspended microbes are, left into the aerator to consume all of these things, what happens? They settle down at the bottom of the tank. This, when the microbes, they settle down at the bottom of the tank, they form the activated sludge, right? Now, this is what we call as the activated sludge. If we go back to the overview again, right, if we go back to the overview, over here you can see that this is the second sedimentation tank, or the after the aeration tank, we put the water into the second sedimentation tank, right? Because remember, aeration is taking place in the aeration is taking place in the aerator tank. Then the water is removed and it is put in the second sedimentation tank. Over there, what is happening? The settlement of the microbes is taking place. Once the microbes and whatever they have decomposed settles down, what will happen? That the formation of activated sludge takes place. Now this activated sludge is 90% water, right? 97% water. So this is what we call as the activated sludge. This activated sludge is 97% of water, and as you can see, this is how the aeration takes place. So over here you can see the aeration is taking place, the water is supplied. Then what happens is, once the aeration has taken place, in this case whatever the bacteria is working on has worked. Now this water is transferred into the second and final sedimentation tank. Over here, remember, all the sedimentation tanks are sloped in the middle, as you can see in this case, right? So these are what? These are sloped in the middle, and this part over here is the activated sludge, right? Why is it called as the activated sludge? Remember students, because it contains microbes, right? It contains the bacteria that helped in the clarifying or cleaning of the water. So this activated sludge is 90% of the water. Now the water, that is 90% water, is removed by sand drying beds, right? Because we do not want, we want to use the activated sludge, but 97% of water is of no use to us. So what we do is we put this activated sludge on the sand drying beds, sand drying beds, or we use machines to dry off the excess water. Then what happens is, once this drying takes place, now this dried sludge is used as manure, right? So we know what is a manure. Manure is organic fertilizer. It is organic matter which helps in the nutrition of the soil. It increases the amount of nutrients in the soil, that thus helps in the growth of the plants. So over here we see that in this whole treatment level, there are two things which were removed. One was the sludge and the other was activated sludge, and both of it was utilized. So over here you can see that nothing is going to waste, right? So again, once the manure we have obtained, we use it in the fields, right? So now once the treatment has taken place, what happens is that the water is now somewhat clean. Now there are, like I said, there are two processes that happens. If the water has to be, if the water treatment plant is such that the water that is cleaned goes into the river or any water body, then after this step, the water can be sent into the, or it can be released into the water bodies, right, or sea. Then whatever cleaning needs to be done, nature takes its course and it cleans the water, right? It is sometimes it is necessary to disinfect the water, because we've already studied that in wastewater there are sometimes disease causing bacteria, disease causing viruses. So we disinfect it through chlorination, that means we add chlorine to it. We disinfect it using UV rays or ozone, right? So this is how the disinfection takes place. Once the disinfection is taken place, then it is released into the distribution system. This after this chemical treatment, all the bacteria, all the any kind of microbes or any disease causing microbes are removed completely. After this chemical treatment, the water is so clean that it goes back into the distribution system. So like I told you in the beginning itself, there are two ways in which the cleaning takes place. There are two ways in which the clean water is utilized. One, it is put back into the lakes, rivers and seas, and the other way is to take it back into the distribution system by doing the chemical method, right? So in this way we see how the wastewater treatment plants are actually cleaning the wastewater or the sewage that is being produced every day. Now, students, remember that especially in country like ours, we have a lot of population and the infrastructure is still developing. So what we as an active citizen, as an aware citizen, what we want to do is we want to reduce the pressure on the wastewater treatment plant. We do not want that the wastewater treatment plant should deal with unnecessary, you can say, garbage, right? So how do we, reduce the garbage that we are producing? Always remember, when we are, in as human beings or even in animals also, we see that the garbage is produced every day. It's a natural part, but we as an active citizen, we can reduce the amount of garbage that is being produced. Some of it is something which we cannot do anything about. For example, like brushing our teeth, going to toilet, this is something which we cannot reduce, but some things are there which we can do to reduce the amount. Like what? Now, if you look at this particular open drain, what do you observe? You observe some plastic particles over there. You observe some unnecessary food material which is present in these drains, right? So over here you can observe that how certain people, those who are not very aware about what they are doing, have left such kind of garbage in these drains, right? This is the drain which will go into the sewer systems and then finally to the wastewater plant. Now, if all of these things were not present in the drain, what would happen? The pressure on the wastewater system would have reduced. But what happens is that because of such open drains, this kind of problem happens, that people knowingly, unknowingly, they throw their garbage into these drains. This also leads into the production of offensive smell. Also, many a times these things get accumulated in the sewerage system and cause problems in the drainage. Then also these open drains are the breeding ground. Open drains are breeding ground for flies and mosquitoes, and we know that flies and mosquitoes both are disease causing organisms, right? Also, we see that in these open drains, whenever it starts raining, because of all of this garbage which is unnecessary that is present in the drain, overflowing takes place. So because of this, what happens? Overflowing of the drains takes place, and all this rubbish and unclean and dangerous wastewater comes in contact with the human beings, right? So in this way, we see that how these open drains are quite dangerous for our environment, because first of all, they are offensive and literally quite disgusting. And apart from that, they are the breeding grounds of your flies and mosquitoes and disease causing organisms. Now, what you can do is, if you see such kind of drains, you can write down to your local bodies. If you're living in a village, you can write down to panchayats. If you're living in cities, you can write down to the municipal corporation, so that they can cover up these drains, so that some of the problems can be resolved. Apart from that, there are certain things which you can do to reduce the pressure on the sewage system. Now, the water in a river is cleaned naturally by the process that are similar to those adopted in a wastewater treatment plant. Quite literally, this is the case because there are certain natural processes which help in cleaning up of the water quite naturally, right? So we saw that how the water was being cleaned in the case when there was only a little bit of cleaning left. We were releasing the water into the water system, that is the natural water bodies. And over there, the natural cleaning was taking place, right? Apart from that, it is a suggestion that has been made that we should plant more and more eucalyptus tree all along the sewage ponds, right? Eucalyptus tree all along sewage plants, because what they do is they absorb all the surplus wastewater and rapidly they release the pure water vapor into the atmosphere. So this is you can say a biological method, environment friendly method that is used to clean up the water. So they quite rapidly take up the wastewater and they clean the water in the process of releasing the water vapor, that is the clean water vapor, into the atmosphere. This again is one of the methods which can be utilized and thus reducing the pressure on the sewage system, plus it will also enhance the green coverage of the area.